Hello everyone, I'm Lorenzo Bettoni, editor of Football Italia. I'm joined by Nima, Tavallaey of SempreInter, an Italian football podcast. We have just covered the Milan derby, the derby della Madonnina. Inter were supposed, everyone was saying it's going to be the 7th consecutive win. It's going to be easy, Inter's going to win. Fonseca is going to lose his job tomorrow, but something different happened. Milan won 2-1. Late Matteo Gabbia goal, great performance from Gabbia, and I would say deserved goal as well. He had to be in because he really played a good game, but Inter were probably under par, not convincing Inzaghi substitutions, a few players clearly not in shape. What are your thoughts on that?
Those who listen to the Italian football podcast would have known this is kind of what I predicted. I was worried going into this game from the Inter perspective because of the fact that Milan's backs were against the wall, 6 defeats in a row, crazy Milan on and off the pitch. And you could sense that Inter, after Manchester City, where they were fantastic, they're still a little bit rusty. The pre-season blues are still affecting them. So I was worried going into this game, and I predicted a draw or a Milan win. And the game played out exactly as I unfortunately feared from an Inter perspective. Milan executed the game perfectly. Yesterday, when I saw the predicted lineup of a 4-4-2, which was a 4-4-1 from Milan, Morata dropping deep, creating numerical advantages in midfield to stop Inter to do the geometria, as you say in Italy, with the triangles. And they perfectly nullified Inter in the opening half and frustrated Inter. It wasn't difficult for them to do that because Inter were not on par. This is not an Inter the way we usually see them. They look tired, they look rusty, they're not fully fit. And Milan created more than enough chances to win, and they won deservedly, no doubt about that.
We were talking during the game because we were lucky enough to be sitting close to each other, so we were discussing during the game the fact that yesterday Paulo Fonseca said the best way to defend is when we keep the ball. We didn't concede in the first half against Lazio because we kept the ball, so we need to do it more often and keep the ball and try not to give the ball to our opponents because like this we have fewer chances to concede goals. But what he did tonight was kind of the opposite thing because, as you said, he went from 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3, the way you want to put it, to 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1 with Morata dropping a little bit deep, but basically it's 2 center forward with Morata and Tammy Abraham. So one less midfielder, one fewer midfielder, and so on paper that's not the best way to keep possession, but in reality Morata changed tactics. What he did is I wouldn't say gave the ball to Inter because I think the gap in the ball possession wasn't huge, but he accepted not dominating proceedings, accepting not pressing high, and when it was the case, he just sit deep and try to wait for Inter and hit on the counter where Milan had the best chances. Did he surprise Inzaghi?
I don't think it surprised Inzaghi. I think Inzaghi was expecting this, but that how Milan were going to play. But I think what happened was that exactly like what he did, Fonseca today, which is incredibly impressive, was that Fonseca managed to somehow create a situation where they were able to absorb when Inter pressed them and when they didn't press them, and they knew when to fall deep, they knew when to push up. They were a cohesive unit in Milan tonight for the first time all season. We've seen it for glimpses the first half against Lazio, but then they collapsed. There was no collapse tonight. There were moments where they suffered in the first half after Inter equalized, and of course in the second half. But overall, Milan were very, very stable, very, very cohesive, a unit. For the first time, 90 minutes where Milan looked like a team. And that's why I think they won. Also because Inter did not, the ball tempo, the passing tempo, the energy, it was gone. It was nothing like we saw against Manchester City. And the fact that we saw the same thing 1 week ago against Monza, that tells me the team is not physically fit to play 3 times a week. And they're already in a position where they have to play 3 times a week. There's not going to be any breaks. I think Fonseca executed, given the pressure he's been under, to be able to get your team, with all the rumors of arguments in the dressing room and this, that and the other, to get your club, to get your team, to get your squad, to execute your tactics exactly the way you said told them to, and to play like a team for 90 minutes was incredibly impressive. That means he's not dead. That means he hasn't lost the locker room, at least from where I'm standing. To me, this suggests that this will give him time. The crisis isn't over for Milan, but what it is, it gives him time. It gives him breathing space. It gives everyone in Milan a bit of breathing space. Now they can sit down and continue to build and start over and impose what he wants to do. The 4-4-2 is not what he wants to play, or a 4-4-1-1. He wants to play his 4-3-3. We know that. But like we saw with Pioli in the past, Pioli reverted to a 3-5-2 many times when he needed to shore up the defense. Well, Fonseca reverts to this 4-4-1-1, and they executed it masterfully. And compliments to Milan. I thought they were very, very stable. They look like a team, and that's what makes it wonderful.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta change the tactical approach, and sometimes you gotta change formation, and that's what Fonseca did tonight. And I mean, I think the game is finished for 1 hour now, 40 minutes at least, and for sure Milan fans are still pretty much enjoying, because we got the Curva Sud right behind us, and I'm not sure you can hear from home, but the noise and the singing, it's very, very loud. And I think there are probably, if we have to pick the standout or the flop performers from this derby, probably the flop performance from Inter, I would, aside from the defenders, because they weren't entirely convincing, at least not as solid as we've seen them over the last, not even last season, I mean over the last few seasons, I would say. Again, we were talking about this earlier, is Mkhitaryan. He lost possession when Pulisic scored the early opener. He looks exhausted away, he looks tired away, and we saw the difference in how quick and how dynamic the team was against Manchester City. So is it time to think that maybe Mkhitaryan is no longer in the start?
I don't want to be too reactionary and say that it's finished and they should think about it. But yes, Inter should generally start to think about life after Acerbi and Mkhitaryan. Mkhitaryan tonight was completely out of it. He was late into every situation. His timing was off. His passing was off. His positioning, which is normally very good, was very off. He looked very, very tired. And his decision making, which is usually his strongest asset and attribute, was just not there tonight. Unfortunately for Inter, when he came off, Çalhanoğlu came off as well. Okay, Çalhanoğlu did not have the best game ever, but that he's ever had in his life. But at least he holds a level where he can still dictate the tempo of the midfield.
I think, sorry if I interrupt, I think I saw on Sofa scoring was 94 or even 97% passing accuracy for Çalhanoğlu.
Yeah, I mean, and that's having him on a bad day.
Yeah.
So that tells you everything you need to know. I understand that Inzaghi needs to rotate. He's been very open about this. We have games every 3 weeks. We're going to rotate. Everyone is a starter. That's why we had the Mercato we did. We have depth. We're going to use everyone. But the decision making, which leads me to the next flop of the match, Inzaghi's decision making tonight was atrocious. Bringing on Aslani, bringing on Frattesi, bringing on Zielinski, rearranging the midfield completely. Barella being taken off. I mean, okay, I understand he's tired. There are things that are, there are games coming up, but you cannot end the derby from the 73rd minute onwards without Barella and Çalhanoğlu in the midfield. It's unacceptable. I know he had a yellow card and Çalhanoğlu had a yellow card or whatever, but it's still not acceptable. Di Marco played 90 minutes. I mean, it's absurd. It's utterly absurd. Bastoni was taken off. No, every single decision he made was very reminiscent of the last time Milan won the derby, when they won the Scudetto 2-1 game. Although in that game Inter dominated, here they didn't dominate. But Inzaghi and Inter, they're not in crisis. It would be very reactionary and stupid to say that they're in crisis, because they're not. If you look at the table, all the teams, Inter, Milan, Juve, Napoli, they're all within 3 points of one another. So it's a very sluggish start to the season. However, for Inter, the alarm bells are ringing. They need to shake off these preseason blues. They need to hit form. There's not much time. Last time it took Inter maybe 1 month to recover from the derby loss. There is not even 3 days. They have Udinese coming up next week. They have the Champions League. they have to just get going.
And then Milan, a very good performance from Milan. As we said, they changed tactics, they changed their identity, they changed the way they play because they knew that another performance like they did under Pioli, really. I mean, with high pressing, with trying to push into inside their own box, it wouldn't have worked because Inter, they really want to have this sort of opponents and they have this sort of and this sort of press from the opponents. We know Inter very well. So I would say Fonseca was very smart in the tactical approach and in the man selection because, I mean, Gabbia was surprising. I mean, it's true that the only game where Milan hadn't conceded was against Venezia and Gabbia started in that match. So, but of course it wasn't nowhere near to the same level of the game that is tonight. So probably somebody would have thought it was a fluke. Somebody would have thought that, okay, you don't concede against Venezia, but it's a normal thing because the opposite would be worrying. But tonight it proved that Milan may have signed Pavlovic. Milan may have a player like Cho who was linked with move to the Premier League over the summer. But I think Gabbia was by far the best player tonight.
I think Gabbia and Reinders. I thought Reinders was excellent. Absolutely excellent. For me, he's my man of the match. I think the fact that when you play like that, when you have Morata, Morata and Abraham are two very dynamic players. They never stop moving. And when you play with those two, one of them always drops deep to create those numerical advantages in the middle of the park, which Milan managed to do centrally. Also with the help of Pulisic and Leao inverting when the fullbacks went on the Teo and Emerson Real came forward. Look, this was a perfectly executed tactical game. Fonseca showed the cinismo, as you would say in Italian, that I've never seen him, and I usually don't associate with him, and that's why I was very critical of him when he was appointed. But tonight, it was back to the drawing board, back to basics, out with everything else. Let's just build something from scratch. Let's build something to build from. And they executed that brilliantly, and they won fully deserved. And Reinders is going to be very important for Milan this year.
Nima. San Siro is beautiful. The game was very beautiful. The luce di San Siro. Game was very beautiful for Milan fans, not much for Inter fans, but still a long season. It's not even October, so it's plenty to play for. Serie A, Champions League, Coppa Italia, everything still to play for. Thank you very much for joining me.
Always
Post-match show. We also have on our YouTube page the pre-match show from the Milan Club New York and the post-match show from the Inter Club New York. Nima and I are here in San Siro, and thank you very much for joining us. Nima?
No, nothing else good to finally meet you, Lorenzo, after 10 years of friendship and knowing each other. It was a fantastic night for Milanisti, a deserved win. Inter need to snap out of whatever is happening there. But overall, it was a great night, fantastic atmosphere. Even though Inter's Curva didn't have a tifo for ridiculous reasons, which we don't need to go into. But the tifo that Milan had was funny. They made fun of me, Inter, and they won deservedly. And pleasure to be with you.
Yeah,